Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and greeting to Dr. Farhana. My name is Alisa binti Amran, and in this video presentation, I would like to present on how the educators can motivate their students that have Tourette syndrome to become more active in class. Before we go further, let us first have the idea about what is Tourette syndrome. Tourette syndrome is a disorder that involves repetitive movement or unwanted sounds called as tics that cannot be easily controlled. For instance, they might repeatedly blink their eyes, shrug their shoulder, or blurt out unusual sounds or even offensive words. Tics typically show up between ages 2 and 15, which the average being around 6 years of age. Males are about 3 to 4 times more likely than females to develop Tourette syndrome. Although there is no cure for Tourette syndromes, treatments are still available. Many people with Tourette syndromes do not need treatment when symptoms are not troublesome. Tics often lessen or become controlled after the teen years. Thus, tics can also involve movement, which is motor tics, or sounds, which is vocal tics. Motor tics usually begin before vocal tics do, but the spectrum of tics that people experience is diverse. Motor tics includes the movement of the body, while vocal tics are sound that a person makes with their voice. Next, moving on to the symptom of Tourette syndrome. Usually, the symptom starts with tics itself. It is a sudden, brief, intermittent movement or sound. Those are the hallmark signs of Tourette syndrome. They can range from mild to severe. Severe symptoms might significantly interfere with communication, daily functioning, and quality of life. Thus, tics are classified as simple tics and also complex tics. Simple tics include the sudden brief, repetitive tics that involve only a limited number of muscle groups. The example of simple tics include eye blinking, head jerking, grunting, and also barking. Meanwhile, complex tics are distinct, coordinated pattern of movement that involve several muscle groups. The example of complex tics are touching or smelling objects, stepping in a certain pattern, and repeating others' words or even phrases. Now, let us watch a video clip of a student who had a Tourette syndrome. Then later, we will discover about the challenges that they face in the class.
Hello. Help.
Okay, so the class was in ready to do it. Which one? In regards to excellent, and then look at protein structure and how it relates to function, and enzymes, catalysis, and we're only scratching.
Helps you to understand what you're being asked to do in a question, and that's usually 90% of getting it right. So sodium is oxide. That is the substance that gives you a question on the final about identifying redox reactions. It implies that you could follow all those elements and figure out what the oxidation numbers are. Or hydrogen is only so it's already +1 here, and over here it's part of a compound, so you know that there's no metal in there. All right. Oxygen is the second one. Unless it's a peroxide, it's always going to be, don't worry about it, just do it element by element. Then you have to actually take into account how many of these you have. That's actually really important, because we take numbers on top of elements, you always write them per atom. But then you have to multiply them by, that will become important. Reactions are not redox.
Based on the previous video, we could identify the challenges faced by them. The first challenge is Tourette syndrome can interrupt their study routines. Students with Tourette syndrome have to slow down their learning pace in the class. It is because at some point, they need to have breaks from instruction to release the symptoms, or even they need to use relaxation techniques to help them reduce the frequency or intensity of tics. Thus, because of that, they tend to be left behind in studies and more likely to feel anxious with their condition. Next, students with Tourette syndromes cannot concentrate in class. They might have difficulty concentrating in class because they are more focusing on trying to control their tics. Moreover, they also need to avoid any triggers that could worsen their Tourette syndrome. Lastly, the challenge that they may face is with the pupil of their surroundings. Other students tend to be disrespectful towards students with this disability and make fun of their condition. This eventually leads to students with Tourette syndrome to be afraid of their friends' acceptance towards them. Thus, they also may be absent from school or even dislike school because they are embarrassed by their tics. Next, moving on to the very important content for this presentation, which is how we as an educator motivate the students with Tourette syndrome. Firstly, the educators must involve the students with Tourette syndrome in developing plans and strategies for managing symptoms that can be difficult or impossible to ignore. Students with Tourette's find executive functioning skills such as organization and planning is very difficult. Thus, students will find transitions particularly stressful. To help with this, educators need to build structure and also routine into our day. By providing plenty of information and guidance about expectation and what is coming up, and also by creating a sense of familiarity, we can help a student manage their stress level. Along with preparation, it is important to give transition warnings ahead of changes taking place. Then, allow the student reasonable time to get organized. Next, the educator able to motivate the students by identify the skills deficits that may contribute to increased stress or symptoms, as well as the strategies and support to address their skills deficits. Thus, students with Tourette's are likely to have difficulties with memory. Chunking information and giving limited instruction will help with this. Also, ensure that you are always repeating and reinforce your instruction. When it comes to completing tasks and assessments, focus on quality over quantity. Assign fewer questions to the students with Tourette's, ensuring that there are only concentration on the core skills required. Lastly, to motivate the student with Tourette syndrome, the educator must ignore the symptoms that can be ignored. This demonstrates acceptance and also normalize Tourette syndrome. Remember that Tourette is unpredictable. However, stress is a non-trigger. So take active steps within the classroom to reduce the level of concern a student experiencing Tourette's may have. The educators can minimize anxiety in the learning environment by addressing the underlying restlessness student can feel. Using sensory toys, spinners, elastic bands, and stress ball will allow a student to overcome a distressing and difficult period. In a conclusion, students with Tourette syndrome often function well in the regular classroom, but sometimes frequent tics can greatly interfere with academics performance or social adjustment. Thus, after a comprehensive assessment, students should have access to an educational setting that meets their individual's needs.